Hello and welcome to Climate Check. Thank you so much for making time. Now, today on the program, we're focusing on a very interesting subject. And of course, remember, this program is brought to you courtesy Strengthening Respect for Environmental Rights project in Zambia. We take a short break. Welcome back to Climate Check. Now, we focus today on conserving protected areas and ecologically sensitive regions. Now, ecologically sensitive regions or zones, also known as ecological fragile areas, are areas designated by governments to protect biodiversity and ecosystems, often around protected areas like national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, among others. And of course, this is what we are discussing on this episode of Climate Check. It'd be nice for you to stay back and learn what this issue is all about and how you can play a part to protect and conserve the environment in your community. Now, joining me via phone is Mr. Ebo Siampale, who is Forestry Program Manager from WWF Zambia. Mr. Siampale, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us on Climate Check.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, listeners.
All right, now let's delve into it. Let's appreciate what we are focusing on today and how important ecologically sensitive regions are to our well-being as human nature.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, we survive because of the natural environment that surrounds us. So, as human beings, we are part of that big picture for nature, and therefore the surrounding environment, which constitutes largely the ecological functionality of all the components of the ecosystem, is what makes Earth, survive and provide all the benefits that humankind and all other living organisms depend on. And this is why when we say ecological sensitive areas, being very important, we collectively look at all living organisms functioning as one, which then is named as nature. And this is why it is very important.
As a country, how are we faring in this regard in terms of the conservation of these sensitive ecological zones?
First of all, you may wish to know that there are mainly four categories of protection, which are the larger blocks of protection or conservation areas. One is the national parks, which is commonly known everywhere. And then we have the game management areas. And then we have the forest reserves. Then we have heritage sites. Now, in the forest reserves component, you have also what is called the botanical reserves. Now, these main four categories of protection are the areas that have been designated to protect very sensitive ecosystems, but also resources, natural resources, which are found in those specific areas. Now, overall in Zambia, we are close to 39-41% of protection. And that's what is actually designated as areas that are sensitive, which are designated for protection. And this protection is actually binding by law, if you like. So that's where we are as Zambia. Now, in terms of the actual enforcement of this protection, we are doing very well in the space of national parks because these ones are exclusively protected from human encroachment. Of course, we could have a bit of some areas that are in national parks which may have been encroached, but we are doing very well in terms of overall protection on national parks. Now, in the game management areas, these are areas that are also used for consumption. So protection is in specific buffers very close to the national parks. But beyond these buffers, we have a lot of encroachment activities happening. And to some extent, there's disturbance in those buffers which are also protected. Now, The spaces in forest reserves, that's where we have massive encroachment in the country. So we are not doing very well in that regard. And this is why you've seen the policy, the framework on the legal instruments in the forestry sector have gone on to encourage community participation so that we can enhance protection of designated areas which are meant to benefit the local people. So generally, that's the picture around how we are faring in terms of those areas which are designated for conservation and protection.
Okay. Now, what role do these protected areas play in our well-being as a people?
A lot of socio-economic importance. First of all, our natural resources are our natural capital assets. That's where the economic value of any nation depends on. And so when you want to look at how we are developing as a country, you need to understand that if we are to achieve any meaningful national development, it will depend on how secure our ecosystems are, our natural resources are. Because for us to develop as a country, we will depend more on sustainable practices that will ensure we balance the issues of the economy growth and also the issues of environmental protection, including social equity. So this is why when you look at the space of the natural resources, it is our money that we can actually boast about. So it's more than GDP that we talk about when we go to financial issues. It is mainly about how much value we have in our natural resources. How much value do we have in our water resources, in our wildlife resources, in our fish resources, in our tree resource, in our minerals, and all this collection of natural resources. That's the bank for any nation. And this is how important it is when we want to actually look at how we can develop as a country. We depend on these natural resources to develop.
Now, for places that have been tampered with, is there hope for restoration?
Yes, indeed. There has been a lot of sensitization going on in terms of what has happened over the years. We have degraded quite a lot of ecosystems that should have actually been benefiting the country in so many ways. And so through those engagements that we've had, engaging the traditional leaders, the local communities, the government institutions, the civil society, faith-based organizations, and so on, we've all realized we need to work together and be able to restore the spaces that we have lost. You may wish to know that in the recent studies that we have actually been supporting government, it has come to our attention that we have the potential of 9 million hectares to be restored in this country. And so that is the target that we are all looking at in terms of ensuring that we can restore these spaces that have been degraded. Now, we've decided to actually, provide guidance in terms of what can realistically be restored against this 9 million hectares potential. So our maximum and ambitious level is that we need to target to restore 6 million hectares. And already from other faith-based organizations, they have actually provided the resources to be able to give us a framework that will guide on how we can actually all come together and participate in the process of restoration. So this goodwill that we've seen from the primary land owners, who are the traditional leaders, government itself, who are the jurisdictional authority and police, guiding institutions, including ourselves who are interest parties, this motivation, this encouragement, this goodwill is an opportunity that we've seen that we can actually do better in terms of restoration once we actually team up and be able to, implement the strategy which is being developed to restore these areas that have been degraded.
Now, Mr. Sampale, how then do we link environmental rights to this issue that we're discussing? Is there a linkage?
There is a very strong linkage, and speaking from the forestry point of view, you understand that the communities that have designated areas to be placed under community forest management, there's transfer of full user rights of these resources to the communities. And therefore, there is no conflict whatsoever when it comes to issues of how the governance structure should operate within these spaces. So the restoration enhancement that is being provided for has this provision in the legal framework where the full user rights are actually transferred to the local people to fully participate and own these resources. So there's no conflict at all, because the participation process to ensure you can declare these areas, they first consider the free, prior, informed consent processes. And that is an assurance which gives you an opportunity to know that the participation of so many stakeholders is actually also provided for, and it places the playing field much more on a level playing field, so that everyone who can participate there, they are assured of the ownership and also recognition of their participation in the process of restoration of these assets.
And as I let you go, Mr. Syampale, what works are you doing around this issue as WWF Zambia?
We are promoting more restoration which provides the ecological functionality. We've also been working together with so many other partners alongside the Ministry of Green Economy to ensure that the targets that the government may have, provided for can actually be, supported in terms of implementation. And so we are also, pledging to ensure that we work with government and meet those targets. One of the targets that you may wish to note is the commitment on the AFRI 100, which is the Africa Forest Landscape Restoration 100 million, where Zambia has a commitment of 2 million hectares. So as WWF, we've gone on to indicate that working with our partners, we'll be able to support government to meet 25% of that target, which means 500,000 hectares is what WWF is working with its partners to ensure we can make a contribution in the space of restoration against this target. Now, as we are doing this, we are also, contributing to the nationally determined contribution target, where we need to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions as a result of providing this carbon sink, which is the tree resource that we are going to be restoring in different spaces and in different landscapes within the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Syampale, for making time to talk to us on Climate Check.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Joining me in studio on the same issue is Mr. Kelvin Stephen Floyd, who is a Research Monitoring and Evaluation Manager at International Crane Foundation. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, Mary, for having me, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Now, let's appreciate your work at International Crane Foundation around ecological restoration.
As the International Crane Foundation, I should start by saying we have a 20-year co-management with the Department of National Parks and WWF, and we're working on the Kafue Flats to restore the habitat we have a vision which is called a thriving wetland for all, meaning people, meaning the wildlife on the Kafue Flats. So that's the work that we're doing at the Kafue Flats. We're restoring the habitat for the wild animals, for the cattle that is actually a rich heritage for the people on the Kafue Flats.
What are your thoughts around Forest 27? We had several views from civil society organizations and many other stakeholders who felt it is an area that shouldn't have been tampered with.
Well, let's look at what roles do forests play in general. Forest acts as headwaters, or these are recharge zones. Mm-hmm. So tempering such a sensitive area would result to disruption in the flooding. I'm sure over the years we've seen an increase in flooding events around Lusaka, Kanyama. It is such activities, if you temper with a sensitive zone like that, then it will lead to such extreme events. So such areas, not just Forest 27, but other natural resources or forest reserves should be kept intact if possible in their pristine condition, so that they can at least help with carbon sequestration, flood regulation. Yes.
And in your assessment as an organization, how are we faring in terms of protecting these ecologically sensitive regions in our country?
I think that is more of a case-by-case basis. I should mention that Zambia has got 20 national parks. Mm-hmm. In addition to the 20 national parks, there are game management areas, there are forest reserves, and then there are bird sanctuaries. So in terms of how we're faring, I think there are some areas which have got good funding and these are faring well. I think I'll give an example. Liwa is one of them, which is faring well. But generally, I think most of the protected areas are facing a lot of threats, ranging from human encroachment due to movement of people from areas which have got less rainfall activities to areas which are more conducive.
Okay.
So as a result, large areas are being cleared to open up agricultural lands. So there's a lot of encroachment, there's a lot of human habitation in sensitive areas. Take, for instance, on the Kafue Flats, the areas which are core wildlife zones, you find that there's a lot of fishing communities which are becoming now permanent settlements. So that is encroaching on the sensitive areas for wildlife. But not only that, I think the main issue that is affecting the management and the state of most protected areas is funding. To manage a protected area, you need adequate funding. So some areas are suffering from inadequate funding. They are suffering the effects of climate change. We can't run away from climate change. So most of the protected areas, I think, are under threats. Some are managed to an extent that you can see the impacts of investment in terms of funding. But I think generally we need to do more as a country to safeguard our natural resources and protected areas.
So in your explanation, most of these threats are human-induced?
Most of them are human-induced because of activities such as, if you cut down trees, the result will be the impacts of climate change. I think over the years we've seen two extremes. I think 2023, 2024, we saw a lot of areas in the country which had little or no rainfall. The following year we had extreme floods. So these are the extremes which are human-induced. And so climate change, I think it's a major factor in all this. But some, I think, are driven by poverty is an issue. Right now, like I mentioned, climate change, we've seen that there isn't sufficient water to produce hydro generation power. There's a lot of red shading. And as a result of red shading, what's the alternative source? It's charcoal. We want charcoal because the demand is there, but that impact is long-lasting. So most of these are human-induced, and it is us who can come up together and try to manage these resources, I think, in a manner that the generation that will come next will be able to appreciate this. So I think we should be looking at alternative sources such as green energy, such as solar, in order for us to try and minimize the impacts that are human-induced.
What is the best approach, in your view, to restoration of these degraded and ecologically sensitive regions? How best can we restore these various areas?
I think one of the most important thing is bringing the communities around these areas on board. Mostly we see communities as the problem, but they are actually the custodians of these natural resources. So if you bring communities as the main stakeholder and make sure that there's community buy-in, then whatever project you're going to take to restore a habitat, they're going to support it, they're going to embrace it. So in terms of natural forests, I think the best is you can start with reforestation, but studies have shown that if you allow a natural forest such as an Miombo woodland to regenerate, you give it a space of maybe 10 years, it's going to regenerate. It takes faster to regenerate as opposed to plant trees, new trees. So it's bringing all the stakeholders, especially putting the local communities, because they are the ones who utilize the forest. They've got natural laws sometimes which even govern certain areas not to be accessed or to exploit resources. So bringing the local communities, but also other areas, sensitive areas such as wetlands, I think mostly are impacted by the spread of invasive species. So removing invasive species is another way which we can restore these important or sensitive ecological zones.
I like the approach where you said if we allow the forest, for example, to regenerate, we'll give it a space of 10 years, we would see the result. How efficient are nature-based solutions as an approach to restoration of such sensitive degraded areas, in view of the fact that the community still lives around that place and may temper?
I think natural-based solutions are the way to go if you're talking of restoration, because if you bring in human-induced solutions, for instance, if you try to plant, you may end up planting trees that are fast-growing, and as a result, you end up bringing exotic plants, which may be actually at a later stage become invasive. But if you allow natural forests or natural trees to regenerate, you're going to ensure that the trees that are regenerating are drought sensitive, are actually resistant to issues of climate change.
How can we balance development and still taking care of our environment, especially protected areas?
I think what's key is having a shared vision. I'll give an example, the Kafue Flats. Ecologically, the Kafue Flats holds the only Kafue leche, which is an endemic species. You will not find Kafue leche elsewhere. Over 470 species of waterbed species. Economically, the Kafue Flats actually contribute to 50% of hydro generation.
Okay.
So 20% of national beef, 7% of fisheries, and the largest sugar plantation lies on the Kafue Flats. So if you come together as developers, as conservationists, and have a shared vision, what do you want to achieve? I think you can allow development in areas which are less sensitive, but also maintain the integrity of core sensitive areas, whereby you restrict activities such as mining or human settlements, which may have an impact on the wildlife.
And how much engagement do you as civil society organizations have with government to ensure that some of these decisions are fully implemented and upheld?
I think we heavily engage with government. An example is the core management that we have, 20-year core management agreement. It's the International Crane Foundation, WWF Zambia, and the Department of National Parks, which is a department under the Ministry of Tourism. So we are working with government, and in addition to that, on the Kafue Flats, we're actually working with the 7 Royal Highnesses. The Kafue Flats has got 7 chiefdoms, and we're actually heavily engaging these Royal Highness to make sure that whatever projects we're developing, it's not only encompassing the interests of conservationists, but also the local communities where the Kafue Flats is their natural heritage for grazing. So we're engaging with local communities, we're engaging with government, and we're managing the resources together.
Okay. And what is the role of traditional leaders in achieving these aspirations of conserving of protected and ecologically sensitive regions?
I think traditional leaders play a major role. They are the custodians of these natural resources, and if you ignore them, then you are not going to achieve anything. Like I've said, the Kafue Flat has got 7 Royal Highnesses, and they are actually supporting the development of the game management plan, which we are developing with other stakeholders, including government. Okay. So if they say you cannot go ahead with this project, then you cannot go anywhere. So it is important to appreciate the roles that traditional leaders play, and also constantly engage them, consult from them. They are not just our leaders, but they are also our forefathers and custodians of these natural resources.
You are on Climate Check, and of course we have come to the end of the episode for this week. Do make a date with me next time, same channel, same time. My name is Mary Mwikisa. Remember, the program is brought to you courtesy Strengthening Respect for Environmental Rights project in Zambia. Until next week, goodbye, and remember to play your part in taking care of the environment.